Hello and welcome to our new YouTube tutorial. In today's video, we will show you how you can use the Graph API with Peakboard to send messages to a Teams channel from the Peakboard box. We will demonstrate how this can be done without administrator consent and with access to only the Azure portal. It is important to note, however, that only sending messages is possible. In the next video after this, we will show you how you can read messages and reply to messages in the thread with your administrator's consent. Let's start in the Azure portal. Here we need to create a new app. To do this, go to App Registration, select New Registration, and assign the app a name. The rest of the settings can remain at their default values. The only exception is under Authentication, where we must set to allow the client public flows to yes. Since we want to complete this as part of our video entirely without administrator consent, we are now finished with creating our app in Azure and can move on to the designer for now. Next, we must install the Graph extension. Go to Data, Add Data Source, and select Extension. Here, search for the Graph extension and install it. After restarting the designer, we can begin to connect data. To send a message from the Peakboard box to a Teams channel, we need to know the team and the channel where the message should be sent. To allow the selection of a team and channel if a user is in multiple teams with multiple channels, we must first obtain this information. Alternatively, we can send a message to a specific channel in a specific team using static values. If you choose this approach, you can skip the following steps until sending the message. A link to a blog post in the video description shows how you can quickly and easily obtain the values for the team and channel. Otherwise, we can find this information in our Peakboard application. For this, we create a graph, data source, and select User Delegated Access. Then we give the data source a name. First, we want to find out the team a user is in. So we call this data source Teams and enter our client and tenant ID, which we can copy and paste from our app overview in Azure as shown. For app permissions, we now need to enter the values we want to query. We could only enter the necessary permissions for each data source. But since we want to duplicate the data source later, we directly enter all permissions. The permissions user.read and offline.access are standard values we always need for accessing the Graph API. Team.readBasic.all gives us access to all teams a user belongs to. Channel.readBasic.all gives us access to all channels within a specific team. And channel.messageSend allows us to send specific messages to a specific channel within a team. When we click on Authenticate, a code is copied into the clipboard, which we must then enter on the website that opens. This allows us to consent our Azure app accessing the data requested in the permissions. We can also review in detail which information our app can access. However, none of these values requires administrator permission. Next, to obtain data about the teams, we need to create a custom call. This and all subsequent calls can be found in the video description. We can check if the API call works and then load the data. Here we see all the teams the user belongs to. We have successfully set up this data source and can close the dialog with OK. To allow users of the Peakboard application to choose the team, we create a drop-down menu linked to the names of the teams from our data source. The selected value is written to a variable called selectedTeam, which we create next and then link with the team. To search for channels within a team, we need to pass the team ID to the Graph API. For this, we create another variable. In the refresh script of the selected team variable, which is executed whenever the selected team changes, we now determine a logic that sets the value in the team ID variable to the value from the team's data source in the team ID column and the row that has the same value as the value in the selected team variable. We can also now display the team ID variable on the screen as a text field, and then start the preview to test if our logic works up to this point. The logic seems to work, so we can proceed with the next value we need to send the message, the channel. For this, we simply duplicate our team's data and name it channels. Now we only need to adjust the call. First, we insert a call that accesses a static team ID. This is to obtain the columns that this call will return. Then we replace the static value with our variable team ID as shown. This makes the query dynamic and adapts it to the selected team. After completing this query, we can proceed like we did with the team to create a drop-down menu and add two variables to store the selected channel and then the channel ID. We can also copy and paste the script for this. Only in the refresh script of the selected team variable do we need to refresh the channels data so that every time a new team is selected, the channels in that team are reloaded. Here again, we can test whether the values are correctly entered into the channel ID data source. And as we can see, the value changes when we select a different channel. Now we have the team and the channel and all the values we need to send a message. So we can create the function that will send the message. For this, we set up another graph data source, but select the user function this time. Here we enter our authentication values again and then add a new function via add function. We must give this function a name and then enter the URL of the function. We now insert the variables team ID and channel ID for the respective values to be able to pass them dynamically. In the request body, we can define our message as shown. If we want to use a static message, we can enter it here. To give users of the Peakboard application the opportunity to enter their own message, we create a variable called message. The $signs indicate that variable can be accessed later. And the S underscore indicates that it is a string type variable. Message is just the name of the variable, which we will see again later. After adding the function with add, we can also load our data to see that we have added a function. We could also add more functions at this point. However, since we only want to send a message, we close the data source and then create a text field in the final step where the message can be entered. This needs a name because we want to access the text later via script. We then also place this script on a button we call send message. Here we can now select the function we created and see that the variable message is available to us. For the content of the message, we now combine the value entered by the user with sent from a Peakboard box to indicate to other users that this message was sent from a Peakboard application. When we start the preview, we see that we can select both our team and our channel. We can then enter a message and click on Send Message. We can simultaneously see in Teams how the message arrives directly in the selected team and channel. Thank you for watching. We hope that you enjoyed this somewhat technical tutorial. Please let us know in the comments if you'd like to see more content like this. As mentioned, we will include the calls in the video description. However, ensure that the variables in your application either have exactly the same names or that you adjust the names of the variables accordingly. Thanks.